I realize that for many of you it wasn't clear what I said outside.
What?
This is an artificially carved, man-made cave because this hilton, this chalky limestone, is very soft and it's very easy to build this. And you can even see here collapse, okay? This, what you see behind you, this was built in modern times, not in antiquity, because there was a collapse here, probably due to earthquakes as well later on, okay? So where you see all this kind of these small rocks and everything else, is not from antiquity, okay? Now, guys with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so the earliest burial that we're going to find here is in the 1st century CE, which means at the very end of the Second Temple period. All the burial here is Jewish burial, all of it, 100%. Okay, but this site becomes a central necropolis after the burial of a kind of important person, let's say around the year 220, more or less, something like that. And the person I'm referencing now is somebody we talked about several times, and that is Rabbi Judah, the prince, Judah, the patriarch. Okay, who we talked about in Tzipori, but actually this is his hometown, and he moved from here to Tzipori and lived in Tzipori for 17 years, but he asked to be buried here, and after he's buried here, we start to see, chronologically, a lot more people wanting to be buried here. Now, having said that, I don't know if you guys have used the term the wandering of the Sanhedrin, okay, or the movement of the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin was actually let's call it the Supreme Court, if you want to use a modern term right now. It was the Supreme Court of the Jewish people, okay, during the Second Temple period.
Elderly
and it
scholars.
did not necessarily have Sadducees in it. It wasn't a priestly class per se, apropos to the previous comment. May have had some there, but not necessarily. The impression is, which may be a projected backward impression for the rabbis later on, was that it's, towards the end of the Second Temple period, it's primarily composed of the middle class Pharisees, rabbinic class, although they may have actually rewrote the history after, we don't really know. But the bottom line is Sanhedrin is a judiciary. It's a judiciary, okay, that among the Jews has a certain legal status, but they still operate underneath the Romans. Okay, they still operate because the Romans are really the Roman law, and the Romans are the law of the land. Okay, and the Sanhedrin is primarily, or not exclusively, dealing with Jewish law, things that wouldn't interest the Romans. Okay, having said that, the Sanhedrin, as far as we understand, okay, was operating somewhere near around the Temple Mount, and we have, of course, several theories about certain complete structures that were found in the last decade and a half that are adjacent to the Temple Mount on the Western Wall. Have you taken them to the Western Wall, Tony?
Yes.
What's that?
Yeah. That specific building is irrelevant.
Okay, so to make a long story short, guys, what? No, not Caiaphas. No, guys. The Sanhedrin is not connected to the high priest per se. Let's make a distinction here.
They're not the same people.
Let's make a distinction here. We're not talking about
Superior Court.
It's a Supreme Court. Okay, it
70,
may have
maybe
some.
70 or-
It may have some priests there, but it's Supreme Court. It's more, guys. It's dealing with Jewish law. Yeah. And here's the. I want to move forward. Okay, here's the bottom line. According to Jewish tradition, which is written in the Talmud. So I said to you earlier today, the Talmud is not a history book. It had history embedded in it, but it's not a history book, just like the Bible's not history books. Okay? According to the Talmudic tradition, after the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE, the Sanhedrin moves to a prisoner of war camp in a place called Yavne. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who I don't know if he's a Kohen or not, but he's a rabbi, he's a moderate rabbi, he's definitely a Pharisee, not a Sadducee, okay, is going to actually rebuild the Sanhedrin, only physically. I'm talking about in terms of people, manpower, rebuild the Sanhedrin in Yavne after the destruction of the temple, and he's also going to start a process of rebuilding or reinventing Judaism after the destruction of the temple, which I referenced earlier today, talking about the fact that after the temple was destroyed, there's no sacrifice. And you have a crisis in Judaism about what do you do without sacrifice. So the Sanhedrin, I told you. So the Sanhedrin's first thing on the agenda, let's say after 70 CE, is going to be dealing with a post-temple Judaism. We're then told that it moves from Yavne, to Usha, from Usha to Shfaram,
Again.
and then back to Usha. It moves. The temple's destroyed. The Sanhedrin leaves Jerusalem. It has to. The city's been destroyed. The temple's been destroyed. They move to Yavne. Yavne. From Yavne they go to Usha. From Usha to Shfaram. Shfaram back to Usha, and then to Beit Sha'arim, where we are over here. From Beit Sha'arim to Tzipori, where we were earlier today. And its final place is going to be in Tiberias. I'll say it again slowly.
Yes.
From Jerusalem to Yavne. From Yavne to Usha. From Usha to Shfaram. And then back to Usha. And then on to Beit Sha'arim, where we are right now. And then from Beit Sha'arim to Tzipori, where we were this morning. And finally, the final place is going to be Tiberias, and they'll be shut down by the Romans around the year 420 CE. Not the Romans, the Byzantine Empire basically disbands them and shuts them down and removes any authority from their hands. Okay? That's the trajectory. Okay? Now, let's go back to this trajectory. What I said earlier, Rabbi Judah the Prince, you're going to see, is from Beit Sha'arim, and at some point, the Sanhedrin's here with him. At some point, he picks up and spends the last 17 years of his life, moves the Sanhedrin from Beit Sha'arim to Tzipori. After his death, after his time, the Sanhedrin is going to move from Tzipori to Tiberias. Please note, Tiberias begins as a pagan city. Just the name tells you it's a pagan city. It's named after the second emperor, Tiberius. It's got to be cleansed of its paganism, and after the rabbis do that, they can move the Sanhedrin there. But this is a whole process. Why is this important to the story? Because this whole story of the Sanhedrin after the destruction of the temple is really about the reconstruction of Judaism when you don't have a temple and you're not allowed to rebuild it. Okay? It's rabbinic Judaism. It's turning Judaism from biblical and temple-based Judaism to a rabbinical Judaism, okay? And one that's mobile, that's not attached just to one place, that can move around.
Turning
that's
to what? To rabbinical?
Rabbinical and mobile. You don't have to be only in Jerusalem. You don't have to be only here, okay? Not one temple is only in Jerusalem. There's no temple anymore. So it's more of a mobile religion, mobility, where people can move around. But having said that, it's also really the reconstruction of Judaism, which is extremely important, okay, in terms of what's going to happen post-temple. I'll say it one last time because especially those who are going to guide Christians don't understand this. Christians think that Judaism today is based on the Old Testament. Yes, Christians come abroad think that Judaism is, especially Protestants, they think that it's all about biblical Old Testament Judaism. And they don't understand that a few things have happened in the last 2,000 years. First little event is the destruction of our temple, and the fact that we had to reconstitute and reinvent ourselves in terms of our faith and our practices. And that, just like in Christianity, Christianity is not Christianity from the time of Jesus, and, Islam is not the Islam from Muhammad. Things developed over time in history, right? You have more hadiths, you have more people understanding of their texts, and it changes. Same thing with Judaism. This is a big part of that story. Let's come over here. One thing, a classic symbol. We saw it in the synagogue in Tzipori. When we talk about Jewish symbolism, what have you not seen today, and you're not going to see today? Which Jewish symbol do you know most? All of you. Star of David. Star of David. Star of David is a new Jewish symbol. It's not an ancient one at all. You did not see a Star of David anywhere in Tzipori. You will not find it on any of the synagogues in Mosaic art. No Mosaic synagogue has Jewish stars.
Islamic.
What is? It's not Islamic. Okay.
It's not Islamic. They used it by the Ottoman times. They used it. Sulaiman.
When you say Islamic, you have as a geometric shape. As a geometric shape, it's from India.